สวัสดีครับคุณแอนดรูครับ
ครับ
สวัสดีครับ
Hello สวัสดีครับ
Good
Good to
morning
see you
Andrew.
guys and see everybody.
Welcome to Morning Brief. I think it's your first time here.
Yes, and you guys cover so much stuff.
How are you feeling today?
I'm excellent, and I'm excited to talk to your audience. You know, I know you guys got a lot of people here, and maybe I can share some ideas as we go through.
Okay, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. เชิญพี่เจษเลยครับ And before you start, we would like to everyone to see your AWS, one of your, I would say, legendary portfolio on Finnomena platform. The latest update today on early January is you increase the weight of China equities to 25% alongside with US 25%. That's the main questions that we would like to know how the FVMR model think about this. And before you start, we would like everyone to see the performance of AWS portfolio. It's almost 50% since launch, and you launched even before the COVID crisis, and having impressive strong return and pretty nice in terms of volatility and drawdown. So let's you begin with the China. What do you think about China?
And that's going to go to 49% for the performance. So 149% on that chart for the performance up to January. Remember that on Monday, we're going to be talking about January's performance. So this is maybe a little preview of some of the things that we're going to talk about. So maybe I just talked to someone in the comments says, what does AWS stand for? It stands for All Weather Strategy. And I do see some of my friends in there, and I'm happy to be here. I see saying hi. So hi to everyone. So the first thing is in December, we reduced our weighting in bonds, and we shifted that weighting into China, which put us at 25% China and 25% US. That's quite a big bet on China. And I would say at this point, you know, that it hasn't performed so far. I know in China was down about 4% or so in January, but you know, we're always trying to look long term. Now we haven't had a position in China for a long time, you know, a large position like a 25% position. We always hold a 5% position. So this is the first time. Now, if you look at China over the past, let's say 5 years, we're down about roughly 50%. You know, it's a pretty big drop. So having never really had any sizable position in China, I think that when I look at this chart that you're showing right now, I'm comfortable to buy at this point. If I look at China on a price to book basis, China right now is trading on about 1.3 times price to book versus 4 times for the US. Everybody knows the US story. Everybody is overweight the US story. And the result of that is that I would argue that the story that looks more interesting to me is China. Now, there's a second reason why I felt like China is an interesting one to look at right now, and that is because of Trump. Many people look at Trump and his trade war concept, his tariff concept, and they think this is bad for the world and for China and all the like. But I actually think that the last administration was more negative China than Trump. I think that Trump actually will come out with more negotiations with China and then come out with terms working together with China over time. And so from my perspective, because part of what you have to remember about China is there really is a deep state in America, and that's the CIA, that's the State Department, And those people that populate those organizations really are on a war path with China. And so I do think that we actually have more chance for peace with China than war with Trump. And so that is a political angle that I think puts a little bit more interest to me in China. So that's maybe a starting point, Jet. Is that does that explain it?
Yep. And why A share when go for China, right? China having the A share, it's a mainland equities, and they also have the Hang Seng, and most of the tech company is in Hang Seng. So but the weighting that you put on China is SCB CHAA funds, right? The fund run it's track the A share equities.
Yeah, so I think that if we look at tech, whether it's China or around the world, that's where valuations are high. And we already have high exposure to tech through our 25% position in the US. So with a depressing economy in China, the real economy has been hit. Things have slowed down. But the market's also digested that. Remember, the market's always forward-looking. And so where I see the industrial base, the manufacturing base, which is represented by China A shares, is actually, I think, is at a bottom. Now, whether that bottom turns this month or next month or in 6 months, I don't know. But I felt from a FEMR perspective, as we ran our model, that the attractiveness of China in valuation in particular was a major factor that got us to think, okay, this is worth it. Now, also, it's important to remember AWS is a diversified portfolio, right? Because we have stocks, bonds, commodities, and gold. So I'm willing to make somewhat of a strong bet on something like China right now, knowing that I also have a 25% weighting in the US and I also have a 25% weighting in gold. And so that's another component that allows us to take a little bit more aggressive. If it was someone's individual portfolio, they may not want to go 25%. But from my perspective, I think we could do that with the AWS strategy.
Oh, you also have gold exposure 25%, and gold also perform strong on your portfolio in January, right? It's
and I think with
the all-time high.
With the FEMR model, we're looking at all of these, in many, many different ways. But from a fundamentals, valuation, momentum, and risk way, the point is that we can go overweight gold 25%. Now, we don't have a weighting more than 25% in the portfolio on any space. The other thing you'll notice is we did go from 0 to 5% on commodities. And that's because of our concern about, global inflation and the possibility of that. And so we have a little position there.
And you would like to ask you the last question before Q&A with few questions with our audience. The AWS, what is your key performance driver? You deliver a strong return, including me, in Finnomena portfolio. Now it's approaching, I think, 4 billion soon, 4 billion Thai baht of Thai people invest in your recommended portfolio, that which we done together with Definite Advisory Securities. What is the key ingredients behind this consistent outperformance?
Well, I think the key ingredient is just look at my face. I'm a serious and structured guy, and I build a structured system that I always follow. I never break that structure. And that's one of the big lessons I've learned from 30 years in the market. The FVMR framework is a very clear framework that we've developed over a long time, where we look at every investment from fundamentals, valuation, momentum, and risk. And when we look at those 4 factors, it allows us to be comfortable to take a bet, like a 25% bet on China. And so I'm not driven by emotion. I'm driven by a structured thinking.
Okay, I give you 3 questions here. Kun DeepSeek asking, we have a AI as a viewer also. Kun Andrew, what your thought on the value of dollars after Trump won the second term?
I thought
Dollar index.
DeepSeek was much smarter than humans. They should be able to answer that, but let's try. So my feeling about the US dollar is that we probably still have dollar strength for another 6 to 12 months. Part of what's happening is there is basically borrowing was out of control in the US and government spending was out of control. It's very hard to bring that into control. What's happening right now with Elon Musk trying to get control of the payments is that it's very possible that they could make a real impact on reducing US government spending. And if they can show that they can reduce US government spending, then that is going to make people feel more positive about the dollar. And so that is my first thesis. And yes, it's Doge. And that's the first thesis on the dollar. But my second thesis on the dollar is politicians rarely deliver on what they promise. So it's really a question of, can they sustain that? If they can't sustain it, then we go and see dollar weakness again. In fact, the Thai companies are struggling because of this dollar strength, right? Hopefully that answers it a little bit, Jet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And are you planning to have Bitcoin in AWS? There are some like sectoral funds like Bitcoin, ASP DigiBlock invest in blockchain Bitcoin.
So my feeling, all the work, let's just talk about Bitcoin for a moment. Forget about the funds. But my work on Bitcoin shows that the correlation of Bitcoin to stocks is very high. It's viewed as a risky asset. Now it has gone up a lot more than stocks over this period of time. So yes, I could potentially think, okay, I want to get the upside on Bitcoin and I'll accept the correlation that's very high to equity. But the problem is when equity crashes, Bitcoin's going to crash massively because it's a risky asset, in my opinion. That's what I see. So the result of that is that in order to get the upside of Bitcoin, I have to hold, let's say 10% in the portfolio. But if I lose a massive amount when the markets crash, then I'm in trouble. So my conclusion is that if I was to put Bitcoin into the portfolio, it would only be about 3%. And if it's 3%, I think it's better for you to invest in it individually and keep AWS as a long-term investment vehicle that people can rely on for the next 10, 20 years, rather than bringing the Bitcoin aspect into it. So that's my thinking.
All right. And so many AWS fan club. API just start AWS last month, plus 3% now.
That's
and you can invest in Finnomena app because Kowa Masi asked about how can I invest in AWS portfolio. And for me, the last thing would like to let everyone know is that Kun Andrew always having the full versions of all weather strategy. Actually, there are 3 strategies: the inflation guard, all weather, and alpha focus strategies. And the next one, when is the next special live with Dr. Andrew?
There it is, Monday, the 11th at 1 p.m.
This Monday at 1 p.m. All right. So everyone ทุกคนสามารถมา ฟังคุณแอนดรูต่อได้นะครับในวันจันทร์นะจะได้รู้ว่าจะมีปรับพอร์ตใดๆหรือเปล่านะครับไปติดตามกันได้ต่อกันเลยนะครับในวันจันทร์นะครับ and at the end is there anything you would like to leave for our viewer today Andrew
Well, I just want to say I saw a lot of comments. We don't have time to answer them all, but to the friends that I see and the investors, nice to see you, and I'm glad that you're investing in AWS. For those that haven't invested in AWS, what I would like to say is that my objective is to build a strategy that is reliable over a long period of time, and that is the main goal. So if you're interested, please join me on Monday at 1 p.m. and you can ask any question about it.
ขอบคุณคุณผู้ชมที่ติดตามรายการข่าวเช้า Morning Brief ครับ
เพื่อไม่ให้ทุกคนพลาดข่าวสารการลงทุนนะครับแล้วก็เป็นการให้กำลังใจทีมงานต้องทำยังไงครับคุณเจษฮะ
ฝากช่วยกันกด Subscribe ช่องทาง Finnomena ทาง YouTube เพื่อให้ความฝัน1ล้าน Subscriber เราเป็นจริงจะให้ดีกดกระดิ่งแจ้งเตือนเพื่อไม่ให้พลาดโอกาสสำคัญ
พบกันนะครับทุกวันจันทร์ถึงศุกร์นะครับ 8:05 น.รายการ Morning Brief กับพวกเราทุกคนครับ
เพราะพวกเรา Finnomena
มองหาทุกโอกาสการลงทุน